For decades, PlayStation has been synonymous with exclusives. From the days of the original PS1 to the PS5, Sony has built its gaming empire on the back of first-party titles you simply couldn't get anywhere else. Games like God of War, The Last of Us, Uncharted, Spider-Man, Bloodborne, the list goes on. These exclusives weren't just games. They were system sellers. If you wanted to play them, you had to buy a PlayStation console. It was a simple and incredibly effective strategy. But now, we're seeing signs that Sony might be preparing for a future where the idea of console exclusivity is no longer the cornerstone of their business. A future where PlayStation could go third-party. I know it sounds insane at first. Why would Sony walk away from the very thing that's given them a dominant position in the gaming market? Why would they give up the reason so many people choose their hardware? Well, the truth is the gaming industry is changing, and Sony isn't blind to it. Over the past few years, we've seen PlayStation slowly shift gears. Titles that were once locked down to the PlayStation ecosystem are starting to make their way to PC. Horizon Zero Dawn, Days Gone, Spider-Man Remastered, The Last of Us Part 1, and God of War have all arrived on Steam and the Epic Games Store. And they haven't just sold well, they performed exceptionally. Sony has gone from testing the waters with PC ports to actively investing in a dedicated PC publishing division. They've purchased studios like Nix's software specifically for the purpose of porting games to PC. And now, with the PlayStation brand extending into the mobile market, plus experiments with cloud gaming, it's becoming clear that Sony is thinking beyond just selling consoles. If we zoom out and look at the industry as a whole, there's another huge factor at play: subscription services and platform ecosystems. Xbox has Game Pass, Nintendo has their online expansion, and Sony has PlayStation Plus in its various tiers. But in a world where game streaming and cloud delivery are becoming more viable, the box under your TV matters less and less. What matters is the ecosystem and the content. If the market shifts further toward Play Anywhere access, it's not hard to imagine Sony deciding that their future profits lie more in software sales and subscription growth than in competing head-to-head with Xbox in hardware. Think about the economics. Manufacturing consoles is expensive. There's a reason both Sony and Microsoft often sell their consoles at a loss in the early years. They make up that revenue through software sales, subscriptions, and accessories. But if you take away the need to build and ship millions of consoles, suddenly your profit margins look a lot healthier. If Sony could release God of War Ragnarok or the next Spider-Man on PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and even Switch, the audience multiplies instantly, and so do the sales. This is exactly what's happening with Xbox right now. Microsoft has already taken steps toward being more of a service provider than a traditional console maker. They're putting first-party games on multiple platforms, pushing Game Pass as a central product, and even bringing titles to PlayStation and Nintendo. If Xbox can survive and even thrive while going more open platform, Sony could follow suit, but with the added advantage of a far more consistent track record of critically acclaimed exclusives. The biggest obstacle to this shift is perception. PlayStation has built its brand identity on exclusivity. Their marketing has always leaned into the idea of only on PlayStation, removing that could alienate loyal fans who bought into the ecosystem specifically for that reason. There's also the risk of losing the cool factor that comes with owning the one platform that is certain games. If The Last of Us Part 3 launches on Xbox the same day as PS5, it changes the conversation entirely. But here's the flip side. Making that leap could also turn Sony into the biggest third-party publisher in the world overnight. Imagine the sales numbers if every new Naughty Dog, Santa Monica studio, and Insomniac games release was available to hundreds of millions more players right away. And with cross-platform play and cloud gaming becoming the norm, players would still associate those experiences with the PlayStation brand, even if they're not playing on PlayStation hardware. It's worth noting that Sony has already taken baby steps toward this without committing fully. Day-and-date releases on PC haven't happened yet, but the gap is closing. We've gone from multi-year waits for PC ports to just a year or less in some cases. The next logical step is simultaneous releases. And once that happens, the wall keeping PlayStation tied to its own console starts to crumble. Of course, there are risks. Going third-party means giving up that guaranteed hardware revenue stream, even if it's smaller compared to software. It also means competing directly with publishers like EA, Ubisoft, and Activision on every platform. But if anyone can pull it off, it's Sony. Their IP catalog is unmatched. Their studios are world-class, and their brand is powerful enough to command attention on any platform it appears on. The truth is, whether or not Sony fully commits to going third-party, the industry is moving in that direction. Exclusives are becoming rarer. Platform lines are blurring, and the demand for more open access to games is only growing. The question isn't whether PlayStation can go third-party. It's whether they'll decide that doing so is the smartest way to keep growing in a rapidly evolving gaming landscape. And if they do, we might look back in 10 years and realize that the PlayStation console we grew up with wasn't replaced. It just evolved into something much bigger.